So you've got the basic British palate, which is really plain food. A lot of it has influenced what we have now. So if you think about our Sunday roast, well, the British have their famous roast, and it's the same idea. You've got potatoes, which they would call mash instead of mashed potatoes. You've got parsnips. You've got a lot of roasted vegetables, some sort of meat. Everything's in gravy. Everything gets mixed together. And that was the most common thing that we'd have there. Besides that, you've got any sort of pie. They do meat pies all the time. Anything in a pastry, the British love. You have a pastry, like a savory pastry for dinner. And then for dessert, or for pudding, they would say, you have a sweet pastry. And then because it's just such a global community as well, you have so much immigration that people have brought their own food tastes there. And so there's actually more curry places than there are pubs anymore in England, because there's such a strong South Asian influence there. As well, when I was in London, you've got different ethnic neighborhoods that you're around. And so you can go to the Turkish community and have food there. You can go 10 minutes down the road to the African community and get a lot of African and Jamaican food. You can go 10 minutes further down the road and have you can have Nepalese food. And so that was fun. It's something I really miss. I can't go into the store now and just get an easy curry really easily. And it's funny, I'd expected the English accent to be what we hear when we go to films or listen on the radio, and it's that very, very nice, rolls out the tongue, pleasant to listen to English accent. And East London, in particular Essex, is known for actually having a lot of British street talk, where it's kind of sloppy, and it's got a lot of slang expressions in it. And so it was very, very rare for me to hear anyone whose accent was so nice that it reminded me of what I thought the British accent was like. But I don't know, you toss in a lot of expressions. It would sound a lot more, you don't say hello there, you say, hey, are you right? Yeah, I'm alright. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm alright. And you do that for a little while. You have expressions, mind how you go? Oh, where are you off to, elders? Hey, my man, how are you? That was Norfolk, which was known particularly for having a really relaxed culture. And so those are just, I don't know, I learned it best with the expressions that I learned there, and sometimes even being back here, it's hard for me to give up an expression like cheers. Is how you say goodbye and thank you at the same time. Oh, cheers, mate. Everything in England is the same, but everything is also different. For instance, they have everything that we have here. It's a culture that is as developed as ours in the United States, or I should say we're as developed as they are. But everything, because it's just a different culture, a different part of the world, a different side of the pond, everything is a little different. So the fact that it's more of a pedestrian and a public transportation culture versus we're used to just hopping in a car and we take that for granted. The fact that we use central heating and they use radiators all the time. The fact that our light switches up means that it's on, down means that it's off. It's backwards there. You've got different plugs. I remember I started to make a list in the back of my journal of everything that I found that was just slightly different about England, and I ended up with just hundreds of things. So it was always fun. It keeps you on your toes, and it definitely makes you feel like you're in a new place. And then I guess the other fun thing about England is the fact that even among the English or the British themselves, you've got different cultures. And so you can tell which part of England someone is from just by their accent or the way that they say things. And this is a country that's as small as Oregon is. And so if you imagine within Oregon having such different groups that there'd be famous rivalries from one town to the other. You've got the Scottish and the Welsh and the Northern Irish as well as the Irish. All these different culture groups that made things fun. It was a good time to be in England. Those 2 years covered the Queen's Jubilee. It also covered the Olympics as well. And so there was the excitement leading up to the Olympics, where for about the 6 months before that, they started to put up billboards and adverts, and people knew that this was coming. I happened to be moving, I guess, to London at the time, so I knew I was going to be close by. It ended up being a lot of fun. You could see different big screens that would go up by community councils so that people could go to the park and watch the Olympics as they were happening. They had the Olympic torch relay, which went all throughout England itself. So it's going to be cold there no matter what time of year it is. For instance, even in the summertime when it starts raining, it's a cold rain and you're going to wish you had a coat. So there were very few times when we'd leave the home without having a coat there. And during the winter you absolutely freeze. I was surprised here one day when I had just taken like a windbreaker and it turned out to be snowing. And yet just because I had some sort of layering, I was okay. But in England, you can have 7 layers of jackets and sweaters and coats, and you have to. And you're still like, how is this cold getting to me? It's a lot different. And the British people like to complain a lot, so they complain about the weather too, which is just part of the culture there. When you need something to talk about the weather and how you don't like the cold, and you'll get along with them just fine. British and American music is so different, especially when it comes to pop. They love country music, but it's got to be the old country music. There was one town I was in where everyone loved Elvis and Dolly Parton and Hank Williams. And luckily I had a companion that was very music savvy, and he was into kind of the old stuff. So whenever we needed to start a conversation with somebody, we could always just say, oh, do you like Hank Williams? And they just glow about it. When it comes to pop music, there's the joke that, you know, Nickelback is the favorite music group in America, but it's the least favorite for the British, because it just shows the difference in taste that they have. The British are very, very fond of British singers. And so you hear lots of artists that are native to the UK that will be played on the local radio stations there, as well as all the big artists that we have here as well. So as far as holidays go, you kind of have to divide everything into what the native British do and what the immigrants do, because you're going to experience both when you're in England. And so the native British have a few different holidays that they have. There's Remembrance Day, which is, I guess, it's around the time period for our Veterans Day. And for the weeks before, people get pins that they wear that have poppies on them. And that's their way of showing, you know, remembering the troops that have died. Originally, it was for those that had died in World War I or the Great War. The British are very savvy about donating to charities. And so you have a lot of events that or holidays that are linked to support of charities. And so one in particular that I remember is Marie Curie Cancer Care. And similar to the pins, people actually get these yellow daffodil pins that during the month of March, it's called the Great Daffodil Appeal. And people will pay for these pins. The donations go to this charity for cancer support. And people wear those pins over the month. And so it was a unique thing to be able to look around and always know when it was March. There's other holidays as well that people support that have to do with charities. You've got Red Nose Day, which is every 2 years. That's where a group of humorists will actually do this big concert, or several will do it. And people will watch that concert on television or on telly or attend it. Donations that come from that event all go to this charity as well. They sell these little foam noses in the store that you can buy for £1 and wear on the day as well. And so that was a great thing about British culture, is to see how mindful they are of being able to serve others. And you've got other holidays as well that are just for fun. One is Guy Fawkes Day, Remember the 5th of November, which is because of some guy who tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament hundreds of years ago. People now use that. That's their 4th of July. It's their chance to light off all of the fireworks. And so that was fun. And then because we were around other cultures, we got to experience Diwali, which is the Hindu New Year. We got to experience Eid and Ramadan with the Muslims. And that was always fun to do, because it made things interesting, and it gave us a great chance as missionaries to talk to people about their religious beliefs as well. Well, you have these towns that have very much retained their medieval flavor. And so especially when you go outside from London itself, you get towns that they still have the old stone wall surrounding the city. You've got the cathedral inside that hasn't changed for the last 1,000 years. And so in most of the towns there is some sort of cathedral or old church. And it's just kind of funny to look around and go, you know, this has been here for the last 1,200 years, and we don't have anything in the United States that's been around longer than a couple of 100 years, at least that's man-made. And so that's something fun, is just to sense the history of that. And the British are proud of that. Well, you've got the White Cliffs of Dover, which a lot of people have heard about. It was the middle of winter, so it was cold. But we did actually go. I was in an area that was very close by called Ashford. And Ashford is close to the English Channel. It's also close to Dover. It's close to Canterbury. You actually have a lot of culture that comes there. So you can see where Canterbury Tales came from. You can drive 20 minutes down the road, and you can be by the White Cliffs and climb them. I made the mistake of doing that in a suit, so I ended up with the chalk all over me. And then there was one time we made a wrong turn, and we ended up in the lanes actually leading onto the Channel Tunnel. And we had to do all sorts of acrobatics with the security personnel in order to just get back on the motorway. So that was kind of fun to be able to take pictures of those things and realize, oh, these are things I've seen before in textbooks or things like that. And then, of course, you've got all the tourist sites within London. You've got Oxford Circus, Piccadilly Circus. You've got South Kensington, Holborn, Chancery Lane, King's Cross, St. Pancras. You can go up to the brick wall in there where they put a monument to Harry Potter with a shopping cart, or the trolley that's halfway into the wall.